Today is a day for celebration. It's officially 4 weeks off medications for me, and that marks the longest I've been off psych meds since I was labeled over 6 years ago. I was given my official label on May 15th, 2011, and it's July 1st, 2017, so that's 6 years and a month and a half. So this is the longest I've been off meds, and my nervous system feels really good. It feels clear, it feels strong, and each day that goes by I feel stronger, like this was definitely the right decision. And I've learned a lot, and I've been really clear and writing down a lot of insights, but at the same time I don't feel rushed to get to them or talk to them, as I have about 3 weeks left in California, so I want to absorb all the California goodness before I go, and also do a few things to prepare for going home, like buy some new clothes, some new used clothes, and send some of my belongings back through the mail, and just be organized. And also, when I pack, I want to have just one backpack that I can use for several days if I'm sort of bouncing around from place to place when I first get home. So if I'm organized in that way, it'll be a smoother transition. And I also got organized in my iCal. I had a bunch of events at the time when I get back, so around the end of July. So I sort of consolidated those, and then I'll probably go through and organize them into different categories, like things I need to do for myself personally, things I want to do for business, things I want to do, possibly getting involved at the clubhouse, things I might want to buy. So just sort of designing my life that way, and also keeping in mind the things that I can actually affect, the things that I can actually have a direct influence on. So I talk about a lot of stuff with myself, and me talking to myself is more about this dialogical relationship I have with myself and keeping dialogue going. And if the whole world was designed in a dialogical way, I wouldn't necessarily have to sit here and talk to myself. But I really see it as nourishment for this other dimension of the brain that seems to just want to be engaged with other energies and other types of conversation, and giving voice to different things and talking about different things, making up words. So it's really just playing with myself. And I'm seeing that that will likely cause ripples outward, because I've talked to myself in all the ways that I want to. It's like an outward manifestation of inner self-talk, and not that everything I talk about is going to come true or I'm ever going to share with people in a conversation, but it definitely gets my nervous system primed for that to be possible. So when I do interact with people, it's in a way that's closer to how I would interact with myself, for myself, by myself. So I'm wondering how that will carry forward into going back home, where everyone that I know, who knows me as they knew me, will they see me as different? Will they still project the same images on me? And can I sort of be immune to those and just uphold how I've been and what I've moved towards? And I really don't know. So talking to myself is good to continue moving forward on nearly a daily basis, just to keep it going in the brain. But I also want to talk about some of my business ideas, and also that superhuman talk, and some of the insights I've written down. So it's just, again, really priming my nervous system. It's like coaching myself. And I have a lot of ideas, and way too many that I could ever carry out on my own, but I still just like to talk about them all, because it's not about being able to carry out everything. Talking isn't about, we only talk about things that we can actually manage to carry out in our lifetime. I actually read a great quote recently, and it said something like, if your life's work can be accomplished in your lifetime, you're not thinking big enough. So that was kind of cool, and I can't remember who the quote was by, but it was something like that. So a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, it's too much for me to accomplish by myself in my own lifetime, but maybe if I'm able to relate with people in a certain way, certain things might be able to unfold for sure. I don't know, but at the same time, I only have power within myself and within the ways that I relate with others. One thing I've noticed lately is I'm not looking at the camera as much. I'm looking here, and it makes it look like I'm reading off the computer or something, but I'm really not. I just sort of stare at it. I don't know why. So I will attempt to look more at the camera. And the first time I went into map consciousness, I was full of energy and I wanted to share that. And I didn't really relate as much to myself as just trying to share it with other people. But when one directs that energy towards self-understanding first, then as one moves through reality, some of that might be shared, but not by actually trying to share it. And that might be some of the difference. When we first get that energy, we want to share, we want to give, we want to create, we want to be playful and all this, but we really haven't established that energy moving through ourselves and then just being shared by virtue of that understanding. When there's no understanding, when there's energy without understanding, it can be quite chaotic. So putting a lot of that towards understanding, and then the nervous system can be ready for life as it unfolds. And happy Canada Day to everyone back home. I'll be home in less than a month. My celebration of 4 weeks off meds to me is way more exciting than Canada Day. And I got a baggie today, and I'm probably going to put a quarter in it, and then a little note, like a special message or something, and then put it in the beach so one of those little sand checker people will find it and then look at the message, and then if they follow the message, then maybe it will be some kind of magical journey. So I think that's kind of fun to just invite some magic in. And I even thought of a new business name today. It could be Manifesting Magic. But the trouble is that could be associated with like magic tricks or something and people looking for magicians. So it's difficult to find something that is sort of an interesting play on words, but is at the same time very clear. And I thought of changing the word pure when I was saying, oh, we're pure, instead of peers, to clear. But I don't know, I kind of like pure. We'll see. And I'm really just feeling like supporting people in this niche of people who would like to live their life without psychiatric meds. Because there's not enough support for that. There's no celebration for that. There's no coming off party. There's coming out parties and all that now, but there's no coming off meds party. So there's a bunch of stuff I would like to start around that, but of course I need to be far enough in my own strength in that to be comfortable sharing that. And I'll probably connect with the woman who told me about the Hardy Nutritionals product and just start sharing. And I'm wondering how I will do that, but I won't go into that now. So 4 weeks, I think, says that we can be off meds and be clear. And of course it takes work and it takes effort and support, but it is possible. And other people have definitely done it too. And perhaps we need to support each other more in that. And tonight will be the first night that I take 1/4 of a Benadryl. So I'm still taking that. I have 4 more nights at 1/4. And then after that, it'll be the first night that I fall asleep without any kind of sleep helpers. So yeah, all this talk with myself will prime conversations when I go home. And I've changed the way I see the world because I see I can live without meds. And I even thought of that it might be good to actually talk to myself about how I might want to talk to people about this and break the news. So what would I want to say to people and when and how? And do I have to be careful? Because if I just go around mental health circles saying, oh, I'm off meds, people might not understand that it is a process that needs to be gone about carefully. And I wonder if a new game that we can create as peers is looking for the magic and not the tragic. And a lot of what is designed into so-called recovery is looking for triggers and watching out for this and being aware of that. And that's a really important phase. But I'm wondering if we can transcend that instead of the game of looking out for the tragic, for the trauma, for the triggers. Can we look out for the magic? And I feel that's easier once we become clear. Can we make magic salient and not the tragic, trauma, and triggers? Actually, I thought of a new word, majiggers, or magic-iggers, I don't know. But majiggers are magic triggers because the word trigger is kind of triggering in itself. But to make kind of a fun word, majiggers, it's a positive trigger. It's something that invokes us and invites us to consider the mystery and the wonder of life and the magic of life. So I kind of like the word majiggers, and I'll perhaps talk about it again to remind myself. Or maybe I'll create a different word. And I came across a bit in a Krishnamurthy bulletin, number 82, 2008, and it's on page 23, and it really reminds me about a lot of the stuff I've been talking about with myself. He says, "There is no exclusiveness in awareness. Attention is not exclusive. If I exclude, there is effort, and effort leads to distortion. Awareness is not effort. When you go out for a walk, what happens? You are receiving all the impressions about birds, people, cars, etc. If you are alert and you are not immersed in a problem, you can give your attention to any one of these things and yet be receptive to the other impressions also. The mind, if not drugged by a problem, is receiving impressions. In that state of receptivity, one object out of the many can be looked at more closely. If I have a problem and concentrate on it through effort, it is exclusive. Through exclusion, I cannot understand it. Through exclusion, I miss something which may be helpful to understanding it. I must come to the problem without a sense of exclusion, which means I must be open all round to any impression with regard to that problem, to every movement of thought. When I examine any one part, I'm not excluding anything else, but I am sensitive to everything that may arise. For instance, I must listen to you and at the same time be alert to listen to what anyone else says, and then to find out the truth in everything that's said. To be aware is to be open, therefore awareness is not a practice. It is not a habit. The moment I create a habit, it is exclusion. To be aware of my contradiction is not to have a screen between me and my contradiction, the screen of conclusion or an answer. If I want to understand you, when I am aware of the screen is removed. Take any psychological problem. You always quote and get the screen between you and the problem. If the screen is removed, you see the problem clearly. Individual transformation brings about immediate revolution in the world in which we live. Individual revolution is of the highest importance, and not mass revolution. The mass is only an invention of the others. It does not exist. Only when there is a passive alertness there is openness. A primary factor that brings about revolution is love. Love is not sentiment, not emotion. It is sufficient if you are aware even momentarily. When you are aware, you see great wisdom. Then there is an interval, and in that interval there is relaxation, and it will be revealing. So he talks about a screen in between. I talk about a clear mind screen, which means there's nothing in the way of the screen. There's no screen in the way of a screen. And I really feel like map consciousness is this energy of individual revolution without referring to this so-called mass, this so-called society that is nowhere. But if we're able to have this individual revolution that Krishnamurthy talks about, the world would change. And so I've just had some hints lately that it's important to direct that energy towards individual revolution or something. That Veronica woman emailed me back and was saying that same thing, that just by focusing on ourselves, that sort of changes the world, because we can't really help other people. And that excerpt was from a talk that Krishnamurthy gave in Madras on the 13th of April in 1948. The other day I wrote some stuff down, and I just want to go into it briefly, and I thought it was rather interesting. I was writing down something about who do we want to have, to keep, or to add to our epigenetic matrix or makeup. So this is expanding on how relationships partly determine how our life unfolds. Actually, it does in a big way. So who do we want to have in our epigenetic matrix? Who is going to see our gestures? Who's going to be around us? Who are we going to be interacting with? And this is really important for people, I feel, that go into map consciousness, because we become more relational. We are very sensitive to the energies being directed towards us in relationships, and usually after a while of sharing in so-called mania, we become very sensitive to the energies being directed towards us, and it eventually warps that energy and makes us crumble back into the ego mode of consciousness, and it's sort of a fractured and traumatized ego mode. So then it requires supposedly some kind of medication to make someone better. So this epigenetic matrix is like our epi-ego makeup. So we have this ego makeup apparently, and I'm not saying that that would disappear entirely, but we also have this makeup that is beyond our own personal ego, and those are the factors that are influencing us when we transition from so-called mania to, say, so-called depression or psychosis or something. But when we can understand this, we can be more cautious about understanding who is in our epigenetic matrix. For example, if there's a psychiatrist sitting in front of me, I have to be aware of the facade and the persona and the role they're playing, and what that role might put into my life as a result of them being in my vicinity, part of my epigenetic makeup. So these are influences from beyond the ego. These are other people's ego structures attempting to move into our energy field and warp our ego back. But when we are aware of these epi-ego gesturetics or interactions, then we can actually stay stronger and stand our ground, really. Stand our ground when necessary, move away when necessary, have a conversation or a dialogue when appropriate. I'll share more in the next video. I don't want to make it too long because I don't know when I'm going to get to edit this. And if it goes in the cloud when it's too long, it's difficult to get out.